They were icons, muscle on wheels, the kind of bikes that made people stare and engines growl. But in 2025, they're rotting in showrooms, unsold, unwanted, and crashing in value fast. These are the motorcycles that went from street legends to financial disasters. Is yours on the list? Let's find out. Number 10. Yamaha Bolt R-Spec. Back in the early 2010s, the Yamaha Bolt R-Spec was hailed as a working man's cruiser. Simple, raw, and dripping with bobber-inspired attitude, it gave off that stripped-down Sportster vibe without the Harley Davidson price tag. At just under $9,000 brand new, it was one of the most affordable ways to get into the cruiser scene without compromising on style. For a while it was a smart buy, but fast forward to 2025, and the Bolt R-Spec has become a serious liability, both for buyers and for dealerships who can't seem to get them off the floor. At the heart of the Bolt R-Spec is a 942 cubic centimeter V-twin engine that delivers 53 horsepower and 47 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers were decent a decade ago, especially considering the bike's relatively light curb weight and low seat height of 27 inches. But today that same engine feels underpowered, sluggish, and dated. Riders are now demanding stronger performance, better fuel efficiency, and up-to-date features. And the Bolt delivers none of that. One of the biggest issues is the lack of meaningful updates. Since its debut, the Bolt R-Spec has barely evolved. There is no ride-by-wire throttle, no traction control, no riding modes, and no full digital display. Instead, you're stuck with a small circular gauge that barely gives you a speed readout, let alone any real feedback. That might be charming to some, but in 2025, it just screams out of touch. Then there's the ride itself. While the Volt has a comfortable riding position and decent ergonomics for city cruising, it struggles on longer trips. The rear shocks are harsh, cornering clearance is limited, and the 5-speed transmission starts to feel inadequate above 65 miles per hour. Add to that a fuel economy that hovers around 50 miles per gallon. Respectable, but not enough to save it. And you're looking at a bike that feels old in all the wrong ways. Dealerships across the country are sitting on these bikes, waiting for someone to take the bait. But the buyers just aren't there anymore. The Bolt R-Spec might look like a deal at first glance, but the real cost shows up over time. And the next bike on this list proves that even brand new models aren't immune to failure. Number 9. Suzuki GSX-8S. This was supposed to be Suzuki's bold new era, a middleweight naked bike that would finally catch up to the rest of the segment. Modern styling, fresh engineering, and a price tag that undercut the big names. But now in the year 2025, the GSX-8S has become one of the most overlooked bikes in showrooms across America. Despite its flashy debut and solid press coverage, riders simply did not show up. At the core of the GSX-8S is a parallel twin engine measuring 776 cubic centimeters. It delivers 82 horsepower and 57 pound-feet of torque, numbers that on paper put it right in the mix with bikes like the Yamaha MT-09 and the Honda CB654R. But this is where the problems begin, because while those bikes offer refinement, proven reliability, and a strong brand following, the GSX-8S struggles with an identity crisis. The styling feels halfway between futuristic and unfinished. The exposed frame, stubby tail section, and stacked headlight design split opinion from day one. More importantly, the overall build quality feels plasticky in person. It lacks the tactile premium finish buyers expect in the $10,000 range. And while it technically has rider modes, traction control, and a 5-inch digital display, the electronics package feels generic compared to what Yamaha and Kawasaki are offering at similar price points. But here's the real killer: resale value. Early buyers who picked up the GSX-8S in the year 2023 are now reporting massive depreciation. Units that once sold for $10,000 are now showing up in the used market for under $6,000, even with low mileage. And it is not just private sellers feeling the sting. Suzuki dealerships are now reluctant to even offer trade-ins on the GSX-8S due to how poorly they are moving. There is nothing inherently wrong with the GSX-8S. It is just not enough. In a market where personality and performance both matter, this bike is getting completely lost in the noise. Now let's talk about the next bike on the list. A Honda cafe racer that promised premium style, but failed to deliver where it mattered most. We dug deep into resale trends, dealer reports and rider feedback to build this list. So if you're finding value, or avoiding a mistake, hit that like and subscribe button now. Number 8. Honda CB1000R Black Edition. Back when it first rolled onto showroom floors, the CB1000R Black Edition was marketed as Honda's boldest street fighter. It was sleek, muscular, and wrapped in matte black styling that made it look like a factory-built custom. With a 4-cylinder engine and aggressive proportions, it had the appearance and pedigree to compete in the high-performance naked category. But in 2025, the CB1000R Black Edition is no longer a top pick. It is a high-priced relic that's been left behind by the very category it helped define. At the core of the CB1000R is a 998 cubic centimeter inline 4-cylinder engine. It produces 143 horsepower and 76 pound-feet of torque. Those are respectable numbers, no doubt, but in 2025 they are no longer class-leading. Bikes like the Yamaha MT-10 and the Kawasaki ZH-2 are outperforming the Honda in nearly every department, from raw acceleration to onboard electronics. And the Honda does it all at a significantly higher price point, hovering around $12,999. The CB1000R Black Edition also lacks many of the modern features that today's riders expect as standard. There is no cruise control, no 6-axis traction management, and the quick shifter is rudimentary compared to the competition. Even the digital display, while sharp, feels dated in a world where colored TFT screens and customizable layouts have become the norm. The overall tech package simply doesn't justify the premium cost, and that has left the Honda sitting unsold in more and more dealerships. Even its handling, once praised for being tight and responsive, now feels stiff and less refined than newer rivals. Riders have reported that the suspension feels harsh on longer rides, and the bike's overall ergonomics are less accommodating for daily use. It is not that the CB1000R is a bad motorcycle, it just has not kept up with the evolution happening all around it. And when buyers look at the performance-to-dollar ratio, they are walking away in favor of bikes that offer more power, better tech, and greater day-to-day usability. Keep watching, because the next motorcycle on this list is a European model that looked like a dream on paper, but became a nightmare for riders and dealers alike. Number 7. Ducati Scrambler 1100 Sport Pro. There was a time when the Scrambler 1100 Sport Pro was considered one of the coolest bikes on the street. It had Italian styling, aggressive lines, and just enough retro DNA to stand out from the crowd. Riders praised it for being fast, loud, and beautifully built. But in 2025, this motorcycle has become one of the worst investments in the naked bike category, and dealers across the country are watching them rot on showroom floors. At the heart of the Scrambler 1100 Sport Pro is a 1079 cubic centimeter V-twin engine that produces 100 horsepower and 65 pound-feet of torque. On paper, those numbers sound solid. Add in features like cornering, anti-lock braking systems, ride modes, and traction control, and you might assume the Scrambler is still a relevant player in today's market. But here's the problem. It simply costs too much to own, too much to repair, and too much to insure. The initial price for a new Scrambler 1100 Sport Pro hovers around $15,000. That might have been justifiable back when this bike launched, but now there are better options in the same category that offer more features, better fuel efficiency, and lower ownership costs. And the worst part, this Ducati depreciates faster than nearly anything else in its class. Riders who paid full price just a year or two ago are now struggling to sell them for even $9,000. Then there's the maintenance. Being a Ducati, parts are expensive, service intervals are tight, and local repair shops often turn owners away because of the bike's electronic complexity. That means owners are locked into dealership service networks with sky-high labor rates. Some riders report spending more on upkeep than they did on upgrades or gear. The insurance situation doesn't help either. The Scrambler's sporty reputation and lack of theft protection make it expensive to insure, especially for riders under the age of 35. Combined with a shrinking resale market, it's a financial dead end for anyone who expected to ride it and retain some long-term value. And if you think the Scrambler's downfall is bad, Wait until you see the next bike on the list. It's an American electric cruiser that promised to redefine the brand and ended up redefining regret. Number 6. Harley Davidson Livewire. Back in the year 2020, the Livewire was supposed to be Harley Davidson's bold leap into the future, a fully electric motorcycle built to silence the critics and capture a younger generation of riders. On paper, it had everything going for it: a futuristic design, lightning-fast acceleration, and the prestige of being the company's first production electric bike. But by the year 2025, that dream has turned into a hard reality. The Livewire has become one of the worst-performing models in Harley-Davidson's modern history. Under the frame is an electric motor producing exactly 100 horsepower and 84 pound-feet of torque. That's plenty of power for city commuting and even spirited highway riding. And with a 0 to 60 time of just 3 seconds flat, the Livewire was undeniably fast. But for Harley-Davidson riders who are used to the throaty roar of a V-twin engine, the silence of the Livewire was jarring. Instead of rumbling down the road, it whirred, like a sewing machine on steroids. For loyal Harley riders, that just didn't cut it. The range was another deal-breaker. In perfect city conditions, the Livewire could stretch out to around 146 miles on a full charge. But once you hit the highway, that number dropped sharply. Most riders were lucky to get just over 100 miles before needing to recharge. And speaking of recharging, unless you had a level 3 fast charger nearby, you were looking at long wait times just to get back on the road. For long-distance cruisers, that was unacceptable. And then there's the price. With a starting cost of $29,799, the Livewire cost more than most gasoline-powered Harley-Davidson touring bikes. That put it far out of reach for younger riders and offered little incentive for older ones to make the switch. Add in the cost of at-home charging equipment and potential battery replacement in the future, and it becomes clear why this bike struggled to find an audience. Even the ride quality failed to impress diehards. At 461 pounds, the Livewire was fairly light for a Harley, but the weight distribution made it feel awkward in tight turns, and the suspension lacked the plush, road-soaking feel riders expect from a cruiser wearing the Harley badge. And while it may still be a conversation piece, it's one few riders are eager to actually bring home. Now let's talk about another cruiser on this list, somehow managed to fall even further. Number 5. Indian Chief Bobber Dark Horse. The moment this blacked-out heavyweight cruiser rolled onto the scene, it made waves with its low-slung stance, minimalist profile, and aggressive attitude. Riders who wanted that bold vintage outlaw look without stepping into a full-on bagger saw the Chief Bobber Dark Horse as a statement piece. Raw, loud, and unmistakably American, but in 2025 it has become one of the hardest motorcycles for dealerships to move. Despite its swagger, the Chief Bobber Dark Horse is now gathering dust in showrooms across the country, and buyers are steering clear. Under the tank is an 1163 cubic centimeter air-cooled V-twin engine that produces 120 horsepower and 120 pound-feet of torque on paper. That's an impressive power profile, especially for a cruiser that tips the scales at 686 pounds. But in practice, that weight, combined with the lack of modern ride aids, makes it a handful to ride, particularly in traffic, tight turns, or urban environments where agility matters most. Riders expecting more than just looks are left wanting. There's no radar cruise control, no adaptive lighting, and minimal ride modes. The instrument cluster is digital but basic, and while the aesthetic is undeniably cool, with matte finishes, chunky tires, and a chopped fender rear, the form outweighs the function. Riders looking for tech-forward safety features or comfort-enhancing options will find themselves disappointed, especially when other brands at this price point offer far more versatility. Speaking of price, the Chief Bobber Dark Horse comes in at $17,499. That's a premium number for a bike that doesn't deliver premium flexibility. And in today's market, buyers are shifting toward lighter cruisers, tech-heavy adventure bikes, or even electric models with cutting-edge design. The resale values are already reflecting that trend. Used listings are popping up at steep drops, and owners are quietly admitting the bike wasn't worth the investment. The result? A motorcycle that looks like a modern classic but rides like a stubborn relic. The Chief Bobber Dark Horse has the attitude but not the adaptability, And in 2025, that's proving to be a deal breaker. If you thought full-size American cruisers were struggling, wait until you see the next bike on the list. Even budget-friendly options are starting to collapse. Number 4. Benelli 502C. There was a time when the Benelli 502C looked like the best-kept secret in the cruiser world. A compact machine styled to echo the look of a Ducati Diavel, it promised a big bike attitude at a beginner-friendly price. Priced at just under $7,000 brand new, it quickly attracted budget-conscious riders who wanted that low-slung, aggressive silhouette without shelling out double the cost. But in 2025, the truth has caught up to the marketing, and this bike has officially landed on the list of motorcycles that are now worthless. At its core, the 502C is powered by a liquid-cooled parallel twin engine measuring 500 cubic centimeters. It produces 47 horsepower and 34 pound-feet of torque. That might seem respectable on paper, but on the road, it's a different story. The bike weighs in at over 530 pounds, making it noticeably sluggish, especially off the line or when climbing hills. For a bike that's supposed to offer both cruiser aesthetics and urban practicality, the lack of real punch becomes a glaring issue. But it's not just performance that's letting riders down, it's everything around the experience. Reports of inconsistent build quality have followed this bike since its launch. From rust-prone fasteners to electrical gremlins, owners across forums and Facebook groups have warned others to steer clear. Then there's the dealership network, or lack thereof. In many states, getting parts for a Benelli means ordering from overseas and waiting weeks, or even months for delivery. And when the repair finally does happen, many shops are hesitant to even take the job, citing warranty confusion and poor parts support. That lack of infrastructure hits hard when it's time to resell. Riders who bought the 502C hoping to flip it a year or two later have been met with silence. Classifieds are flooded with listings priced around $3,000 or less, and many still aren't moving. The resale market simply doesn't trust the Benelli badge, especially when competing brands like Honda and Kawasaki offer similar bikes with better reputations and more power for roughly the same money. And if you think import cruisers are risky, wait until you see the next bike on this list. An expensive touring machine with a reputation that's unraveling fast. Number 3. KTM 1290 Super Duke GT. This is the kind of motorcycle that looks like a dream machine until you own one. The Super Duke GT was built to combine track-level performance with long-distance touring comfort, all wrapped in aggressive styling and high-end tech. But by the year 2025, the reality is set in. This machine is a financial and mechanical nightmare for riders and dealerships alike. Let's start with the numbers. At its core is a 1290 cubic centimeter V-twin engine that produces a staggering 175 horsepower and 94 pound-feet of torque. It sounds incredible on paper, and it is. This bike was designed to dominate both the twisties and the interstate, but performance only tells part of the story. When the Super Duke GET first hit showrooms, it carried a starting price of $20,000. That's premium sport touring money, and riders expected premium reliability to go with it. Instead, what they got were endless reports of electronic glitches, overheating issues, and premature clutch failures. Many owners describe the riding experience as a love-hate relationship. You'd fall in love with the speed and comfort right before ending up back at the dealership for another expensive repair. And that's where the pain really begins. Maintenance on this bike is no joke. European parts are expensive, service intervals are tight, and not every local mechanic wants to touch a high-strung KTM. Even routine work can cost hundreds of dollars. And if you need parts fast, good luck. They're often back-ordered or come with long shipping delays. As more horror stories poured in online, the resale value began to collapse. Riders who paid full price just a year or two ago are now struggling to sell for $10,000, or even less. Dealerships are stuck with unsold units taking up valuable floor space, and buyers have started steering clear altogether. All the horsepower in the world doesn't mean much when the bike spends more time in the service bay than on the road. The Super Duke GT was supposed to be the ultimate do-it-all machine, but in 2025 it's become a cautionary tale in orange paint. And if you think that was rough, wait until you see the next bike on the list. A retro classic that proves style alone won't save a motorcycle in today's market. Number 2. Triumph Bonneville Bobber. There was a time when this bike turned heads just by sitting still. The Bonneville Bobber was Triumph's nod to stripped-down British cool, a factory-customized solo machine that looked like it rolled out of a vintage garage in the 1930s. But here in the year 2025, it has become one of the worst motorcycles you can spend money on. And not because it lacks heart, because it lacks evolution. At the center of the Bonneville Bobber is a 1200 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine, delivering 77 horsepower and 78 pound-feet of torque on paper. That's decent power for a retro-inspired cruiser. But on the road and in the market, it simply does not hold up. The bike tips the scales at just under 502 pounds and comes with a starting price of $13,500. Yet it offers none of the modern features that riders expect today. No ride modes, no cornering anti-lock braking systems, no digital display. Just an analog speedometer that looks straight out of the early 2000s. Back when the Bobber launched, its rigid look, single seat and slammed fenders made it a bold design move. Riders who wanted a minimalist cruiser with heritage styling fell in love, but that love has faded fast. In a world filled with highly capable street-naked and tech-savvy cruisers, the Bonneville Bobber feels frozen in time. It is no longer unique. It is just under-equipped. The single-seat layout also works against it. No passenger option means no versatility, and that translates to fewer buyers. Long rides, forget it. The riding position is cramped, the fuel tank is small, and the comfort level falls apart after 20 minutes in the saddle. When you add in the competition, bikes with more power, more tech, and lower prices, the Bobber becomes a tough sell in every direction. Forums are already flooded with owners struggling to get even half of what they paid just a few years ago. So while the Bonneville Bobber may look like a vintage dream, in 2025 it rides like a modern regret. And if you thought this chapter was bad, wait until you see the next bike on the list. It was once a muscle legend, now it is a dealership purse. Number 1. Suzuki Boulevard M109R. This was once the king of muscle cruisers. The Boulevard M109R didn't just turn heads, it snapped necks. With its stretched-out silhouette, massive rear tire, and aggressive design, it was built for riders who wanted to dominate the streets. For years it held its place as one of the most intimidating motorcycles on the road, delivering brute power and a bold attitude that no beginner dared to tame. But fast forward to the year 2025, and this once glorious machine has become a painful reminder of how quickly a bike can fall behind. At the heart of the M109R is a beastly 1783 cubic centimeter V-twin engine. It produces 128 horsepower and 118 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers are still impressive on paper, but they're no longer enough to save this machine from its growing list of flaws. The power is there, but so is the weight, the thirst, and the outdated tech. And that combination is exactly why buyers are walking away. This motorcycle tips the scales at over 765 pounds fully fueled. That makes it one of the heaviest cruisers in its class. And with no modern ride modes, no traction control, and no full-color digital display, the riding experience feels frozen in time. It still relies on basic analog gauges, and the suspension is harsh on anything but a perfectly smooth road. Fuel economy is another sore spot. Riders are lucky to squeeze out 32 miles per gallon, and with gas prices climbing, that alone is driving buyers toward more efficient bikes. Maintenance doesn't help either. The shaft drive system is durable but expensive to service. Parts aren't as common as they used to be, and independent mechanics often charge a premium for the size and labor involved. And the resale market? It's ice cold. Even showroom condition bikes with low mileage are barely clearing $6,500, despite retailing for over $15,000 just a few years ago. If you've ever owned a bike that turned out to be a regret, drop it in the comments. We want to hear your story. And if you don't want to miss the next list of bikes that actually hold their value, hit that subscribe button now.